What is up there, Workforce? Chris here with Work To Game, and for those of you that are new around here, we do a thing called community feedback. Now, Brian and I make a huge effort to read and respond to as many comments on this channel as possible. It's why we started the channel. We were having these conversations on the phone with each other, and we just wanted to involve more people. And that's where you guys come in, and it's been incredible. But community feedback is a chance to reflect back, and the video we're looking at today is Shadowbringers just more of the same? Is it just a repeat of previous expansions? There is an accusation on one side that makes the game stale. On the other hand, there's people who say, well, don't break what isn't broken. So let's start in on our first comment, Azure Arcade. I think the game is gearing up to give us more big things in the future. My biggest complaint about Stormblood is with some of the patches being a bit bland. Other than that, it was a decent expansion in my opinion. I think Square Enix is aware that they had some shortcomings in Stormblood, and they will probably avoid them in Shadowbringers. There will always be naysayers and doomsayers with every game and anything in life in general. I don't take them too seriously unless they have good points to make. I'm anxiously awaiting to hear about the battle system changes and how our current jobs will be different. I'm hoping they will surprise us and go big, but I'm not expecting it. I'll even be happy with minor changes. So there's a couple things to unpack here. That's why I wanted to start with yours, Azure. Yes, anytime there's an expansion, they're always gearing up to do things that they can't do with a content patch. So it's when we see our biggest round of changes. That being said, that it's generally going to be iterative in nature, meaning they're just going to take things one step further. They're not going to scrap everything. And so with Stormblood, it got a lot of accusations of being stale and being bland. Brian and I were among the people that had complaints during Stormblood. Even when we liked Stormblood as a whole, we still had complaints about areas we thought it could improve. And being bland was because I think that they siphoned off a lot of resources for a very select few projects. And so when you actually look at it as a whole, the effort was definitely there during Stormblood. But what they did is they said, okay, all these things are working. Let's not change them or improve them really at all. And let's put them over here. And let's take all that remaining effort and let's put it into new systems. So Heaven on High had drastic changes over Palace of the Dead, in my opinion. Eureka took Relic and Diadem and combined it into something that brought back all sorts of feelings of 11 and 1.0 and all these things, and there were all these comparisons to previous, aspects of the Final Fantasy gameplay, and a lot of people liked it, but a lot of people didn't. But it was a huge amount of effort, whether we liked it or not. Bringing the limited job system in where it could be implemented prior to Shadowbringers launch, that took place during Stormblood. So there's a huge number of things. Even when you just look at the crossover events, I mean, like the Raphos event, that's a huge amount of work, and it's a lot more than just a couple of cosmetics. There was a whole fight that functioned inherently differently than anything we'd seen before. So I think there were a lot of changes, but what that meant is all the in-between patches with those big changes had to be a bit bland. I thought the raids were well done, but they were kind of compartmentalized. Here's your 3, and then those are gonna be on their own, and that's not going to be something that it looks like we're going to continue into Shadowbringers. So those raids will be different, better or worse, who knows. So yeah, I agree with you. It was a decent expansion, and the blandness I think comes at the cost of having a couple things that were really pretty big departures compared to Heavensward within kind of the context of an MMO. You're never going to have a total departure where the battle system becomes like turn-based or something. It's always going to be iterative, but these were pretty big jumps. I do think that they're aware of their shortcomings. I think they talk about, especially if you listen to the panels at the various fan fests, about things they thought worked and things they thought didn't, and what they would do next time around, how much work it was to try to change something, and why next time they would do it differently. Putting different people in charge of ultimates and things like that are definitely things that they have to think long and hard about. This is a game that the vast majority of the ideas start in a very small number of minds and expand out to a larger team. Not that that's atypical for the industry, but I think that those select few people have spent huge number of hours in their lives, probably an unhealthy amount, thinking about what they can do for this game. And the fact that they're players as well just really shows, at least with the passion that these projects have, even if they don't stick the landing. I can tell that Blue Mage was a lot of effort and that it was a great idea for the game to expand the game. Until we get the whole thing, I'm kind of withholding my final judgment. But as of now, it's a pretty light amount of content, knowing how much effort it probably took to get there. But there's always going to be complainers, like you said. And so, you know, the big thing that, at least here on this channel and in some areas of the internet, I see it in some certain Twitch streams and things like that, is it's about the conversation. As long as people are being productive and constructive and saying that, you know, hey, here's why I don't like it, instead of just like things like get good, then I think that there can be two sides to an argument. There can be people who don't like content and do like content, and they're both right. Kind of like the whole male Vieira thing. People are like, oh, people are saying they're rare, and if they didn't exist, it can't be both. And it's like, well, it can, because it depends on where you're looking in lore. I'm anxiously waiting to hear about the battle system changes. Yes. Now, keep in mind, those are going to change drastically for you and you alone. A black mage from the outside looking in has always been a black mage. They stand really far, they cast big spells, they have long cast times, they complain about moving, and they have a rotation that swings from kind of fire to ice, and they toss down thunder as their you know, their dot. That hasn't changed. That's core to their identity. But if you've played Black Mage was my main through ARR and in Heavensward, and it was the first class I leveled in Stormblood. There's been drastic changes for Black Mages themselves. So your class should change quite a bit in its flavor, but it's still going to be your class. You're not going to see, oh, all of a sudden paladins are healers. Like, that's not going to happen. So they're still going to operate within the same mindset. They're still going to fulfill the same role within that grouping, right? Warrior, paladin, and Dark Knight are 3 different flavors of tank, and they can't push to each other. They've got to remain separate from each other as much as possible while being a tank that's interchangeable within the content. So let's go ahead and move on to the next comment. Quasbe Jones, I said this in another video. There are going to be 3 types of people. People who, like myself, got everything they wanted. People who quit completely, and people who are disappointed but will continue on. Yes, there are 3 people. I think the vast majority of people fall in category number 3, and I think that it is more exciting for the conversation to identify in group number 1 or 2. And so within groups 1 and 2, vocally right now, some of those people really probably are 3s. They're saying, oh, I'm out, I'm quitting. And it's like, no, we'll see you on June 28th. Do I think there are people quitting? Yes, I do. But do I think that it's the same as the number that are saying they're quitting? No, I think the vast majority will have enough to keep them in the game. People who say they got everything they want, oh, I called it. Well, that's really easy to say now. I don't think that there's anybody who could have called every change we're seeing 2 years ago. Yeah, we're going to get 2 races. They're each going to be gender locked, 1 male, 1 female. And then we're going to get a tank and a DPS, but we are going to get dancer, but it's not going to be healer. And like, I just think that when you start to list off the number of things we already know quite a bit about, like even just the limited job system, there's no way anybody could have called this without leaks, without hints, if you back yourself up well before all the hints started. Now, once we start to get hints, who caught on first? Sure, there might be people who have that level of pulse with the game. But I think that the vast majority of us are looking at saying things, well, this isn't how I would do it, but I'm going to hold judgment for now. I'm going to keep on playing because there's more than enough here that's good to outweigh anything I wish may have been a little bit different. Mocha says, I thought the term expansion meant more of the same. It does. It means sequel. It means continuation. We don't expect Marvel to come out with the next best rom-com. Like, it is absolutely... we're building on it. And so that video, like, people saying the game is stale, it's like, I don't know what you mean by stale, because... you know, if you go see a movie and then you go see a sequel and then you go see, you know, number 3 and then number 4, and you're like, you know, these Star Wars movies are just an awful lot about like space and wars. It's like, well, yeah, I mean, that's kind of a thing. So expansion does mean more of the same. It ideally means expanding on the same concept. You're going to elaborate. So you're going to take that as an opportunity to say, hey, these areas could be better. I'm going to elaborate. I'm going to change them, just tweak them a little bit and make them better. And then these areas that are the same that you guys loved, oh yeah, those are totally going in there just like they were. So you like dungeons, we're going to do more dungeons. You like your classes, we're going to do more classes. But they're, you know, we need more PvE lateral content. Let's try limited job. The squadron system and the chocobo system didn't quite do it, so let's expand on that by adding in the trust system, which is something that exists in another game under the Square Enix universe, but doesn't exist here yet. So hopefully that helps plug things in. So thank you, Mocha. Lucas Smallwood, I'm honestly 100% with this video. Thank you. Yes, it was sad to see gender-locked races, but overall it won't affect the fun I have with Shadowbringers. This is the part of this comment that I really honed in on. Not agreeing with gender-locked is not the same as thinking gender-locked will kill the game. When you talk about races, there's only a handful of ways to really make them drastically different. Ultimately, you could start adding racial abilities, and really leaning in on those racial abilities and making them pivotal, but then you take all these people who've already committed to their race and you have to either give them free race changes, which doesn't fix it, because I like that I'm a Makote, and it's your fault that you didn't make Makote viable in the way I want to play. And then because people can be all the classes, there would end up kind of being, oh, I have to commit to a race for my main class, but if I switch my class, I'm now a suboptimal race for it. So like, I don't think abilities really work in the context of 14. I mean, there's probably a way to do it, especially if you take those abilities and you take them out of the battle system, so that they're just preferences. Things like cheaper teleports, faster mount speed, faster reputation gain with beast tribes, faster, things like that that don't affect anything major and they're just preference. They could do things like that. But ultimately, the other thing is they said they only had time for one race. They add, and what they meant was one gender. They finish up female Viera because that's the iconic gender for that race. And then because they said, okay, we're only gonna have time for one model and I want to do something very different. What's a race that we know only has one gender? Viera, great, perfect. And they go out there and they go, man, we went to the effort to come out with all this fur. We have time for another model. Are we going to do male Viera at this point, or do we want to find something else that has fur? Since we did female, is there something that's iconic as a male? All right, let's try Ronzo. So like, I think that you can follow that line of thought and you don't have to be intentionally going, you know how we're going to discriminate. This is the moment. And so like, I think there's a lot of accusations being thrown around where, we have to factor intention in. And I'm not saying that negligence and hurting people without meaning to isn't a thing, but I am saying that like, we can't just fight over every little thing, and not every hill is a hill to die on. And a gender-locked race, we don't even know if they're gender-locked long-term. If they literally don't even have the ability to put headgear on these things yet, they're not done. So is it possible that down the road we get the other genders? Yes. Is it possible we don't? Yes. So like, complaining in the forums is fine, but sitting there and saying that this was laziness, I mean, they still came out with two models. Instead of coming out with two models of the same race where it's just, oh, we can reuse the same textures, they're coming out with two models of different races. All right, that doesn't seem like laziness. Like, yeah, instead of doing the book report you asked me to, I did two other book reports because I was feeling lazy. That's not lazy. It's wrong, but it's not lazy. So like, can you disagree with them and say they made the wrong choice? Absolutely, but it's not laziness. And so to say that we wish they'd gone a different way with this, to say that we wish Dancer had been a healer, or that we'd gotten a healer, or to say that, we wish that whatever, I mean, there's going to be things we wish were different. But I don't think that that's a sign that there isn't going to be more to enjoy with Shadowbringers than there is things to be upset with. So I would look at that as a positive balance, not a negative, and really focus on what are the things they did give me? What are the things that they did that are exactly what I wanted, and how do I engage with those? And if that list gets too small, regardless of how big the things I don't like gets, if they only come out with 5 things I like and then nothing I don't like, that's 100% what I like, and it still may not be enough for me, and I still may quit the game. So really, it's about how big can the list get of things that I'm willing to engage with, and just ignore all this other stuff. If they come out with 200 things I like and then 1,000 that I don't like, it's still so much that I like that I'm never going to run out. And so I'm going to stay in the game. It doesn't matter how big that list got. That list is just things for other people's stuff. There are people who like that. So that makes up other people's 200, and that's awesome. Good for them. I'm going to focus on what matters to me. Drebber, I keep hearing content creators, YouTubers, streamers talk about how there are so many people talking about boycotting or unsubbing. I get that it's a catchy thing to say, adds more clicks and views. Me personally haven't seen anyone talking about boycotting or unsubbing. I have just met a lot of reasonable people that are pretty bummed out that the same guy got rid of gender-locked races and then reintroduced them 6 years later. I think it's becoming normal to act like backlash and rage is bigger than it is, because content creators are saying, and what I'm seeing is just not lining up. The first thing I would say is, if you are going to use anecdotal evidence, if you are going to say, what I'm seeing, then you have to broaden your scope. So when people respond to this comment, which was after you posted it, and say, hey, there's things on the forums, which I may have said in my video, I don't remember my exact words, then I encourage you to go out and look at the forums. If you only Google, why is X bad for me? And then you read all those and you're like, well, says here that it's bad. You know, it's like, well, try Googling in a couple of different ways, checking other sources. If there is going to be obvious bias, try checking something on the left side of the issue and the right side of the issue so that you can kind of get a centrist view. And so I would say there are whole threads on the forums about people saying they're going to quit. So in this case, YouTubers saying that people are saying they're going to quit isn't really exaggeration, because there are. And those numbers vary. And so as of this recording, let me just kind of refresh this so that we can get active numbers. And I'm not going to go through and count. I pulled some quotes that I'll throw out that are on the page right now, talking about, like, you know, unsubbing. I just pulled those from going through the first couple pages of a couple of these threads. But the Male Vieira unsubbing for now, 43,000 posts. Some of those are people saying you're done for unsubbing, and some of those are people saying they're unsubbing. I'm just saying there's a whole discussion about it. And then that's just the first. There's others talking about, like, what Male Vieira should look like. Male Vieira is a playable character, 128,000 views, 1,800 posts. And so there are whole threads right now, considering the whole gender lock controversy just went up today. It's been up, like, honestly, it's been up less than 30 minutes. Already has 337 views. It's already getting replies. You're looking at, like, what they should look like, 16,000 views, 300 replies. So to say that people aren't out there because you haven't seen them is, like, there's no way any one person has seen the whole world. And this is just me looking at the English forums. So you would have to then, if you were trying to be really accurate, go look at all the forums in every other language. I don't read Japanese, so I can't represent that. Maybe there's not a single person saying that you know, this upsets them and that this is a reason for maybe taking a break from the game. It's a final straw for them. I've been looking for more cosmetics. You introduce cosmetics and then you lock them. This is not going to be cool with me. So I don't know that, you know, it's not being spun up a little by YouTubers, because we do go for clicks. If I have 5 video ideas and I say the community is really going to like one of these, excuse me. If I have 5 video ideas and I say the community is really going to like one of these and they're not going to like the others, I'm going to post that one. Because as I said at the beginning of this video, Brian and I started this channel because we wanted to have this conversation with you guys. A lot of people accuse us of doing it for the money, and, like, this channel, at least as of today, doesn't even make in the ballpark of what it would take to get Brian and I to do this full time. I mean, not by any stretch. Does the money from Patreon and things like that absolutely help us do things like make sure that both of us could go to FanFest? Yes, that's how we spent that. We bought both our tickets to FanFest, and if Square Enix gives us free ones next time, which we will accept, Square, then we'll spend that money on something else. Maybe we'll bring lighting with us, because we felt that our lighting in our videos for FanFest were suboptimal, and the reason is we didn't have lights that could travel. And so, like, does it allow us to do things for the channel? Yes. Does it allow us to say, I mean, Brian and I are both in a form of self-employment. So does it allow us to say, how many new clients, how many new things do I have to take on? Can I afford to take on one less client because the channel is going to, I don't know, pay my internet bill, or it's going to pay for all my video games, so I don't need a hobby budget, right? Yes. If it buys all my consoles from here on out, then that means that my wife and I don't have to buy all my consoles from here on out, because I wanted consoles either way. If I'd never started a YouTube channel, I was crazy at playing games before, so that's not something new. So that expense has always been in my life, and I have Nintendo consoles, PlayStation consoles, Xbox consoles. I have a lot of them. So are we appreciative of what the channel does for us? Yes. But does that mean we're ready to leverage just picking the most viewed video? I would encourage you to go look at our backlog, if you meant that accusation directed at us, because we post on whatever we want. And we post a lot of videos that don't get a lot of views because it's what we want to talk about. Like I said, if I see 5 videos, what do I think you guys are most interested in? I'm not going to go pull a 6th that I know you guys would be interested in. I'm limiting myself to the things I want to talk about. Brian's limiting himself to things he wants to talk about. We only put out videos we want to put out. And do we hope they get viewed? Absolutely. Why would I spend time putting stuff on my hard drive so that I could edit it, so that I could post it? That's all times I could be playing games. And I started this channel because I like talking with Brian about games. But if we didn't want anybody else to hear that conversation, we could just go back to the phone calls. Like, it worked fine. So when you're saying that people want views, like, yes, but to say that they can't, like, want views and still feel good about the topic, I don't know that I think that those are exclusive. I think that you can sit down and say, what's a video I would enjoy to make, and what's a video I would enjoy to have filmed and out there to share that people would also like in return. So I don't know. That's just kind of the note I wanted to end that on. Thank you guys so much. Community feedback is a great chance to visit with you guys more than we get to in the regular comment section, more than we do when we occasionally get to stream. We'll get to stream a lot more with the launch of Shadowbringers because I think we're both trying to set our schedule so that ideally we can be live a lot around that. So we look forward to that. If you guys have more to share on this conversation, I would love to continue it in the comments below. Thank each of you, every one of you. The comment section on that video was huge. So I just tried to pick up ones that summed up kind of what other people were saying as well. So if those were what you thought, then absolutely that's what factored in me helping pick kind of the people that I did. Have a great day. My name is Chris with Work To Game, and I'll talk to you next time.
Do you guys remember Clyde the Couch Bear from the early videos when I was shooting in my living room and the couch was right behind me? Just wanted to do a quick update on his life. He has been way promoted. He's now guest bedroom bear. Doesn't flow as well, but definitely feels like he's got his own sweet gigs now that we have 2 beds in our house.